So here it is. This is the Canon R50 V. This is one of two new video-focused, vlogging-based cameras from Canon. This is the PowerShot V1. We've done a full review about this on the channel. If you want to see that, check out that video. But this video is all about the R50 V. This is a new interchangeable lens camera from Canon that really boasts some fantastic video features. Of course, I think this is up against the Sony ZV-E10 II, so I'm going to be talking about the comparison in this video and just showing you tons of clips and videos from this little beast. Right now, I'm shooting on the Sony ZV-E1, and I think what we should do is switch over to this camera for the rest of this video so you can see how this looks as a studio camera in the studio. So let's do it. Okay, so we've now switched over to the Canon. As you can see, the lens on its widest point is a lot more zoomed in than my Sony lens. So this is about as far away as I can get. And I'm using a Sennheiser microphone plugged into the camera on its automatic audio setting, so you can hear what that sounds like. So this is Canon's first real APS-C camera positioned directly at vloggers and content creators. You can change the lenses and you can tell the camera is super video focused, more than like really ever before. On the left, we have mic inputs, headphone out, HDMI, and USB-C. The top is really nicely video focused, and you don't see this on a lot of these type of cameras. It has a simple record button surrounded by a zoom toggle, a live streaming button, which is quite new, and a shutter speed dial. And what I really like is the camera settings dial is really set up just for video, including 3 custom modes which you can set up. So I've got it set up for 25 frames per second on C1, on C2 I've got 50 frames a second, and on C3 100 frames per second. And it makes it very easy to switch between those modes. There's a color profile button right in the back of the camera, and then your regular dial for granular camera controls. The screen is also a full touch screen too, which is really nice. It works very fluidly compared to some other cameras I've used, but there are 2 downsides to this little flip out screen. The first is the resolution is actually quite low for a camera in 2025, and it just means when you're previewing your footage, it looks like it's not that great. So the first few shots I got from this camera and the V1, I thought, it looks kind of average on here. I got it back, put it into Final Cut, and it actually turns out that the footage is really, really nice. So it is only for monitoring, but just something to bear in mind. And then secondly, the screen isn't very bright. So bearing in mind you don't have an EVF to look through, the little hole that you can look through on some cameras, you're relying on this screen. It's not very bright, even on its brightest setting. So there's a few times where I've had to cover the screen to really see what I'm doing, so I would like them to add some sort of like brightness boost in those kind of lighting situations. Now, what is really nice is that Canon have added a screw mount to the side of the camera, which means not only can you attach a tripod to the bottom, you can take it off and then instantly go from horizontal to vertical video, and I absolutely love that. On the front of the camera, we have a recording light and an extra record button. The camera came with this 14 to 30mm kit lens, which is actually pretty nice. It has a smooth power zoom, so when you move that rocker, it doesn't actually kind of open or close the barrel. It sits still and actually allows you to do some really nice slow zoom in and outs, which is actually really, really handy for video. It means your camera's also not shaking around as that zoom extends. Now, whilst it's not the biggest range, it's pretty good for content creation, I would say. And of course, you can take the lens off and swap it out at any time. The major thing I was surprised about is how light and compact this camera feels, whilst also being super powerful. Clearly, the Sony ZV-E10 II is its biggest competitor, but this actually comes in slightly cheaper than the ZV-E10 II, and I think it could be a better deal. The R50 V can shoot in 10-bit 422 in C-Log3, and the image quality we've been getting is really, really nice. If you want to shoot stills, you can still get 24.2 megapixel images. The 4K is downsampled from a 6K sensor, and you can film at 50 frames per second 4K and 100 frames per second in HD. And the HD actually looks pretty good. Now, one letdown for me is there is a huge crop on that 50 frames per second footage, like absolutely massive. And that doesn't happen so much on cameras like the ZV-E10 Mark II. Now, it's not a deal breaker because they all do crop in to some degree, but it's just quite a big crop. I think it's like 1.5 times crop. So it's not a deal breaker, but it does make it a little bit frustrating if I'm honest. Now, where Canon is really winning in terms of the video features is it has things like false color to adjust your exposure. And that means that you have this like color chart that shows you how different parts of your image is looking in terms of its exposure. And it's something that I'm getting used to. It's the first time I've used it, and it's really, really good, and something you don't get on the Sonys. The autofocus on this camera is really nice. I've not had any issues with it so far. Some of the old G7X cameras suffered with pretty bad autofocus, and I can confirm the new V1 and this camera is really, really good in autofocus. So I shot most of the time with C-Log3, and the image quality, as I'm sure you'll agree, is really nice. It feels like I'm using a compact camera, so just to pull out this footage that looks this nice, especially with this little kit lens, is really, really good. It really punches above its weight. Now, as this does shoot in 10-bit, you can really play around with the footage in post in Final Cut or Premiere Pro and add some nice cinematic looks to your footage. So if you want to add LUTs, you can check out this pack that we've made here at Editor's Keys for the R50 V and the PowerShot V1. And we took a lot of time creating these, but now we've made them available on the site. So if you shoot in C-Log3 or you're getting this camera or the V1, check out a link to the LUTs in the video description below and check out these shots. Now, if you want to shoot run and gun, this is what the standard picture profile looks when you just have it in full automatic mode. And in my opinion, the V1 and the R50 V have the best standard automatic picture profiles that I've seen from a camera pretty much forever. Normally the standard picture profiles look too harsh, too contrasty, but this actually looks pretty great. So this is a little test of the internal microphone in a very windy situation. We're right next to the beach. It's a very windy day today. How is this internal microphone holding up against the wind, and how does it sound from about 1.5 foot distance from the camera? Now, when I tested out the PowerShot V1, I was very, very impressed with that internal microphone. That one had a dead cat on it. In the box in this one, I don't know if it just wasn't included because this is a loaner unit, or if they don't actually include one with the PowerShot V1. Reach out to Canon to find out. But how is this audio sounding without a dead cat with the inbuilt audio? Now I'm using the Joby Wavo Go. This is my kind of go-to very small shotgun microphone, and within the Canon settings you have an auto setting, so that's what I'm going to be testing out for this video because I think this is what a lot of people are going to use. Obviously you can set your own manual settings and that always works fine in almost every camera, so I'm interested in the audio quality coming from the Canon with the Joby microphone on top set to auto. Does this sound much better than the internal microphone? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, now one issue I've had with this camera is that it doesn't have in-body image stabilization, or IBIS, something that I think is a big miss for a vlogging style camera or a video camera. Sony also make this mistake as well. I think when you have cameras like the DJI Pocket 3 doing so well, I think Canon should put more into creating a super stable sensor by adding IBIS. Essentially in this camera you have 3 modes. You have off, which I think is pretty unusable. It's pretty shaky unless you've got a gimbal or it's on a tripod. First test, this is image stabilization turned completely off on the RV. How does this look? Probably pretty shaky, I would imagine. First level completely off. Now let's try image stabilization turned on. You've got on, which is using the lens stabilization, and it's okay. It's good. I'd say it's good level. It's not amazing, it's not incredible, but it's good. Next shot, this is with it turned on. This is the middle level and probably the level that I would always use. I think this looks the best, still a little bit shaky, and as you can see it crops in very slightly, so you do lose a little bit of image quality, but I think it's worth it to reduce that shake just a tiny bit. And then you have the enhanced image stabilization, which I think just adds too much wobble and digital artifacts and stuff, and I actually think it ruins your footage. It also crops in too much as well. Okay, this is enhanced image stabilization turned on, and as you can see, we have really cropped in right now. Now the problem is when you shoot at 1/50, if you're doing 25 frames a second, you get a lot of these micro jitters. But because I don't have an ND filter on, I've had to whack up the shutter speed to 2500, so you might not see those jitters. That's one way of getting rid of those digital jitters. It still might look bad, but I just think it's too cropped, it's too hard to fix in post, so I usually go for the middle one. But what do you think? Off, on, or enhanced? This is what it looks like. Let me know. So in my opinion, out of the three, I would pick the middle one because I think off is almost unusable when you're walking and talking, I mean. And then the digitally enhanced is okay in certain situations and you have to up the shutter speed, but it's a little confusing. I think you can mess up your shots in both scenarios. The middle one, you can improve a little bit in Premiere and Final Cut, so I would go with that one, but just a little disappointing, the stabilization isn't a little bit better. So if you're buying this camera, just make sure to shop around for a lens with stabilization built in. Now, Canon have launched the PowerShot V1 and the R50 at the same time for almost the same price. So the V1 is a fixed compact camera. It has a fixed lens built in. The R50 has interchangeable lenses and a bigger sensor. But where does the R50 fit in generally in cameras? Well, if I'm honest, for its small amount of flaws, I think the R50 V is better than the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II in my opinion. I just like how it feels. It's more professional. I like the weight, the build quality. It just all feels very, very high end. And for this price, just under £1,000, I don't think you can find a much higher quality camera for that price bracket. Of course, if you go up to like 2,000, you know, but then you could get two cameras for that price. Now, out of this and the V1, personally, as I own some higher end cameras like the Sony ZV-E1, I think I'd personally, right now, go for the V1. A lot of ones in there. But if I didn't have an APS-C camera at all or a mirrorless camera, I'd go for the R50 V as it allows much more flexibility in the future. Okay, so I'm back on the Sony now, just so we can round up my final thoughts about the Canon R50 V. When I first saw this, I thought, these kind of cameras can sometimes sit in this like halfway house where they're expensive, but they don't really offer you a lot of the benefits of just paying a little bit more and getting over the maybe £1,500 mark, which I say is a little bit more, it's quite a lot more, but when you're investing in a camera, you want something that's going to last you for a long, long period of time, especially if you're going to use it for work, which I think this camera could be. Now, where I think this sits is this is for people who maybe don't want a compact camera. You know, they've gone beyond their iPhone, they've gone beyond the compact camera. They maybe want to use it for professional work and you want to use interchangeable lenses, or you might already have lenses and you want this as maybe a B camera. Now, why I think this is actually a very, very good camera, and I'm giving it a good recommendation, is that it's very lightweight. I was surprised by how lightweight this is. The features of the camera, you know, the image quality, which is the main thing, and the microphone built in are extremely good for this price range. The only other option you have really at this price range for a 10-bit interchangeable camera is the Sony ZV-E10 II, which is a very, very good camera too. But I think this beats it in just a couple of areas. I think the build quality is a bit better. It feels a bit more premium. The internal microphone is a little bit better as well, but it has things like false color. I feel like it's more set up as a dedicated video camera. You have the custom buttons there, which you don't have on the ZV-E10 Mark II. And I just like how it feels. I like the C-Log 3 image quality coming out of this camera. It's very, very close between these two cameras, to be honest. But I think out of the two, I would pick this camera. Now, for me personally, I've been playing around with both of these. This is the PowerShot V1. This is the camera I would probably pick, but only because I have the ZV-E1 as my big mirrorless camera, so I have an interchangeable lens camera. But this I really like because it gets me closer to the image quality coming from that Sony or this Canon, and it's compact. You know, it's still a little chunky, but you can just about put this in your back pocket. You don't need to take a mic with you. So that would be my choice, but I think I would get this if I didn't yet have a mirrorless or an APS-C camera. If I didn't have this camera I'm filming on right now, this would probably be my go-to first choice because it gives you that flexibility to change lenses. It's very compact. You can even get smaller lenses for this if you want to make this more compact. The battery life is decent. The image quality is fantastic. The only letdown really, as I've mentioned before, is that IBIS. It's really not the best. I think if you're going to do professional work, you will need a gimbal. Otherwise, just be very, very steady with your shots. And we've got techniques on this channel on how you can improve your video stabilization just by walking a bit better and handling your camera a little bit better. The stabilization isn't terrible, but it just, compared to this camera, compared to a Pocket 3, which is super popular, it gives you those little corner jitters that we really don't like to see, and I wish Canon in the future could update that. And if they could, this would be unbeatable, but it's still a high recommendation from me. If you want to see the full video review of this, and you want to see a versus between the two, we're going to be putting those videos up very soon. I'm also going to be doing a comparison between the V1 and the DJI Pocket 3. So thanks for watching. Make sure to check out the LUTs for this camera at the Editor's Keys site. I'll put a link in the description below. Thanks for watching. Leave your questions or comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.